Hello. We are live. I am currently waiting on the YouTube side. Yes, we are confirmed. We are live. Welcome, everybody. This is so cool to see everyone come through and be here. We have 8 watchers right now. If y'all want to start by entering the space by commenting your name, pronouns, whose land you're on, that would be great. And while I wait for folks to share their comments, welcome to our panel discussion around creating a new culture around coaching and business. We're calling this business not as fucking usual because right now it should be anything but usual with the current state of the world, the current climate, everything. And I guess my radical thought is maybe it should be just business not as usual, period. Because what does that even mean? And we're going to get into that more in depth. We have 4 lovely panelists here. We have Aria, Leighty of Show the Fuck Up Media. We have Soulèy of Cultural Preservation Network. We have Dianna of Astro Artistry, and we have Nadia of Real You Leadership. And I'll have them share a little bit about who they are and where they're calling in from. So we could start with, who wants to go first and share a bit about you, pronouns, where you're calling from?
I can go.
Yes, Aria, I was going to ask you.
Hello, my name is Aria Leighty. I am from Honolulu, Hawaii, and she, her, CEO and founder of Show the Fuck Up Media, all about getting the girls, gays, and theys, the BIPOC and the queer folk onto more stages, into more rooms, on more platforms, and not having to change who we are when we enter those spaces. So super stoked for this conversation and seeing it come to life.
Yes, amazing. Anyone want to go next? We'll do popcorn style.
I can go next. Hi, everybody. I'm Soulèy. I am the founder of Cultural Preservation Network, where we focus on helping creatives and culture keepers build well-resourced legacies. I am currently on Cherokee land in Atlanta, and I am Haitian American. And I'm just so proud of you for showing up today. Every single person that is here, shout out to you, because that means you are a change maker and you are ready for something different than what we're used to seeing. And I'm very excited to really get into that. So pat yourself on the back. We're here. We're excited. Let's get it.
I can go next. I love that. Patting myself on the back already too. Hey y'all, I'm Nadia. I am the founder of Real You Leadership, and I am a leadership and negotiation coach, primarily working with BIPOC women and femmes, and also doing leadership training and development with an intersectional perspective and decolonial perspective. And so I am currently residing in Zapotec homeland, otherwise colonially known as Oaxaca, Mexico, where my partner's from and just moved here in May from the Bay. And I'm excited to share. I'm also Filipina American, first gen, child of the diaspora of the Philippines, and just really so excited to be here with other change makers and people who just care and give a fuck. So thank you for having me here. And Stella, thank you for bringing us together.
Guess that leaves me. Very, very grateful to be here. Very honored to be here. A little nervous to be here. Have a lot of energy after a couple of weeks of doing a lot of self-healing work. So this is my first talking to people after a couple of days being in a strange space for myself. But it feels really good to enter into this from that. So thanks to everyone for being here. My name is Dianna, and I am an astrologer and an artist and a witch, and now a death doula. So my business is called Astro Artistry, which kind of encompasses all those things. And I am currently on what is a very expansive place with lots and lots of different names of groups. Because it was kind of a trading space, there were a lot of different groups that came here. It is stewarded by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. They say the Cascade people were the ones who tended to what is, now the colonized land of Troutdale, Oregon. But it's the Columbia Gorge. So there were a lot of different, so big trading passage. So it was a very rich place. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I'm just so excited to be here, and I can't wait to get started.
Thanks, y'all. I guess that leaves me. So I am Stella Gold. My pronouns are they, them. I am a rebirth and wealth coach for change makers, and I come from a lineage of activists. So activism is really at the root of all my work, and how I embody activism. I embody it in a multitude of ways, but one of those ways is through my business, My Gold Standard. I do this work. It's a blend of, what it is a blend of wealth and business coaching. It is now also a blend of death and grief work. So I can't wait to talk to you more about that, Dianna, because I know we have some overlap there. And spirituality as well. So reclaiming my own connection to my ancestors through spiritual work. My background is of mixed Filipinx ancestry. I have Chinese ancestry. I have Scots-Irish ancestry. I have Romanian Jewish ancestry. I have a lot of ancestry. So that is me. What I am truly all about, though, is about resourcing ourselves and the collective and creating a more just and liberated world and rebirthing a new way forward. So this panel is really a model of that, a container of that. I really want to show other coaches, other entrepreneurs that there is another way, that you have the power to create, to co-create, because this is a community responsibility in this world, in this industry, and co-create a new culture that is rooted in anti-capitalism, economic justice, solidarity, and collective liberation. And so before I get into our conversation, I do want to honor the land that I'm on, where I am holding this conversation and facilitating this conversation on. So I would like to begin by acknowledging the Aina on which I gather with you all as part of a larger territory recognized by the indigenous Hawaiians as their ancestral grandmother, Papa Hanau Moku. We honor the Kanaka Maoli, the indigenous caretakers of these lands and waters, the elders who lived here before, the indigenous today, and the generations to come. One thing that's really important to recognize is that Her Majesty Queen Liliuokalani yielded the Hawaiian Kingdom and these territories under duress and protest to the United States to avoid the bloodshed of her people. And I further recognize that Hawaii remains an illegally occupied state of America. As a settler myself, I recognize that I am indebted to the land, the ocean, and the Kanaka Maoli as a guest on the island of Oahu, otherwise known as Honolulu, Hawaii. And I say this with great pride and knowledge that it is my kuleana responsibility to give more than I take and commit to dedicating time and resources to working in solidarity. So if you are unfamiliar with whose land you are a settler on, posting in the comments. I invite you to look on native-land.ca and pay your land tax, because that's what we're all about. Although I feel hopeful that y'all that are arriving here already have that practice integrated into this work. Okay, deep breath as we get into this conversation. And our first question. Hi, Angela, welcome, and Joanna. Another Angela, welcome. So, before I get into the questions, Nadia, would you be so kind to invite our audience to just think about their own intention? I'll give you the stage.
Yeah, so we'll just take a couple of minutes to do a small grounding, but very powerful, deep, intentional grounding together. And it will require you to just relax and be. So feel free to just take one deep inhale together. Wherever you are at, we are connected in this deep breath in and connected in our deep breath out. Just do 2 more of those. And as you do that, soften the brow, soften the belly, relax the jaw, fingers and toes. Roll out any tension with that last deep, big breath in and big breath out. And although we cannot see you as you continue breathing at your own pace, we are with you. And we invite you into this conversation. We invite you into this space we are co-creating together. And we thank you for being here. And as you continue breathing, just go inward a little bit more. Be present. You must have come from a very busy day already, and you might be on your way to more things after this. The day might not be over. So think about your intentions and ground in them. What called you here today? And what might you need to ground in or name or even release to be fully present for yourself and for all of us? Because we're here together. Go ahead and take one more deep breath into that intention or that release. And take what serves you, leave the rest behind as you exhale. And we would love to see in the comments as we move forward for anyone who wants to share for these questions so we can hold that intention, that grounding, or that release with you and honor that as we move forward. And I will share mine, which is I'm here to learn as much as I am here to share. And I am releasing the duress of oppression and capitalism that I was naming with my co-panelists and co-speakers today. And to be fully present, I am leaning and fully embodying gratitude to be here in community. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Does anyone else want to share anything before we get into the questions I have for y'all? Ready? Cool, let's get into it. So the first question that I have is, I want to start first from where we're at and also where we've been as a industry. I named this industry the coaching industry, the service provider industry, the small business industry, entrepreneurship industry. How do you currently see it right now? And maybe how have you seen the culture before as well? And do you think there is a shift happening right now? We can start with, I want to start with you, Love, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like this time we're at a very pivotal time where we're kind of like in a space of like old and new, and there's like a bridge happening, and we get to build that bridge that we're like to get to that new, because we've been so used to, as Nadia said, this very like extractive capitalistic way of operating in business, of interacting. And I know us for sure on this panel from our conversations have been like, just no, this doesn't resonate and it doesn't align. So we chose to do something about it. And that's what the space feels like. It feels like a beautiful opportunity to like okay, we don't resonate and we don't align and this doesn't feel right in our bodies and this is not how we like to operate. So it doesn't mean to throw the whole thing out. It means like, okay, then let's create that change, because at the end of the day, we deserve to be well resourced and we deserve to, be able to have that for our communities as well. So just being able to like, okay, let's see what that looks like. Let's name that and create from a place that really honors our essence, honors our ancestral wisdom that really pulsates through our bodies, and also just like honors the vision of what we see for the future. Because for me, I have always lived by this saying that I say any chance I get, and that is, if you don't see the portal, create the portal. We can sit here and complain all day and night about, how things are not working and how we don't like it. But unless we actively choose to like, what does that change look like, even in a small capacity within our community, because that becomes big. You affect one person starting with yourself, and then the next person is inspired just by how you're moving, just by you showing up in your authentic essence and really moving in a way that is standing for what you believe in. And then that's like, oh, wait, I can do that too. And then that trickles forward to the next and the next. And then the next thing you know, you built that bridge to get to the other side. And so I feel like that's the opportunity that we have right now to each get to do that. And then to do that individually with our magic, and then bring our individual magic that we've, spent that time cultivating into the collective, and then we get to do that together and we get to support each other. And I feel like that's what we're all doing, and this space really invites us to do that and to really question like, okay, what does that look like for us? What does it look like to be an alchemist, where we can go from something that we don't like to like, okay, we can do this. And it starts with that one person. So that's where I would leave that.
Thank you. I love this idea of how we're at this opportunity in building a bridge. So I really resonate with that. Anyone else want to add to that question? So how do you currently see the culture around coaching, business, and entrepreneurship today, or perhaps in the past, that there might even be some residue with?
I think what I'm noticing, and something that I'm really anxious and excited to really burn down, is that this whole, especially in coaching, the online service space, it's all rooted in aesthetics and vanity metrics. Like, that's where the past like 4 or 5 years has really led a lot of us, with all the like Instagram and the influencers and all of that. Especially if somebody that talks about visibility and deals with visibility, a lot of people come and they're like, I want new followers, I want to go viral, like this entire concept. And I'm not meeting a lot of people that like want to be rooted into a mission. It feels like people don't even have missions anymore beyond like 10K and 10 minutes, like as fast as you can, very high ticket, low touch. And I think all of that is bullshit. I think that a lot of, especially the coaching industry, I hate to be called a coach, even though that is one of the services and magic that I provide my people. Like, it's so icky. And even if it is supposed to be more in like the feminine energy, a lot of the girl bosses are just regurgitating the same dude bro harmful colonized shit and putting a sparkly little bow on it and then being like feminist, and so that's something that I really want to get away from. For me, like, I'm really focused on networking, collaborations, community, and that's always been my top visibility strategy, even when I didn't really realize that I was creating a visibility strategy for myself. And I feel like the word community is being like co-opted and used, like misused everywhere. And people are naming spaces community when they have no idea what that means, the action behind it, what it requires, the way that you need to show the fuck up, the way that you need to put your money where your mouth is, the way that you need to be like investing into your people. So I think that's the biggest part that I'm seeing right now is like, even most recently last week, I was invited into a room And the girl that I felt like I had been very clear about where, I stand with a lot of things. She was like, you have to be there. It's 6, 7, and 8-figure business owners in that room. Like, that's a room you need to be in. And I'm like, when the fuck did that become the metric? Like, what does that tell me about the rooms that I want to be in? Like, how did they accrue their wealth? How are they paying their people? What do their teams look like? Are they getting on sales calls and, with vulnerable populations and convincing them to, get a mortgage on their house or get a new high interest loan to pay for their coaching or their services? Like, I don't give a fuck what your wealth is. Like, that's not the rooms that I want to be in. I want to see, like, what are we disrupting? What are the conversations? Where are we headed? How are you treating your people? Things like that. What's the room going to feel like when I walk into it? So that's my little.
I see a lot of folks just shaking their heads at both what you and Love shared. Nadia or Dianna, do you want to share what came up for you?
I can go next. +1, Aria, to all of that, really. And I'll just speak from this. I have been a coach and in this industry for 7 years now. And I will say my first few years, I was eating that shit up. Like, I want to be a millionaire coach. I want to make $10,000 in a month, in a week. I want to have 30K launches. I want to have all of this. So coming from that to see how, I can't say, to Love's point, new and older bridging, because that still exists. That hasn't gone away just because I've divested and diverged from that. That still is happening in the coaching industry, and it is icky and it is gross. And I invested in it. I paid high ticket programs to learn how to replicate these high ticket programs, and they worked immensely well. I scaled my team and I had to downscale my team, which was heartbreaking because I loved my team. And I'm still not quite sure. It felt right at the time, but to hire, to grow was what these people taught me to do. And at some point, when you're not careful, you lose your way, right? You lose your way to why you wanted to do this. For me, it was my own personal liberation first and foremost, and to support the community that I care most about, which is BIPOC women and femmes. And some of these coaches out there that are doing these capitalist practice are just replicating cycles of harm, as we're saying. And I couldn't see it until I started getting close to their staff, their support coaches, their people, knowing that they weren't getting paid right, to Aria's point. They weren't getting their contracts fulfilled. They were also being exploited. And these were other BIPOC femmes doing this to them. And it was a rude awakening. And I had to strip and unlearn and literally take out practices throughout the years, because I realized this isn't aligned. This feels exploited, or this type of marketing feels like it's very much twisting the knife marketing that I was taught, or sales tactics, even in my what I call chemistry sessions, my discovery calls for potential clients. There were just tactics that I was taught to normalize that felt like, honestly, pushing people. And not to say that I was tricking anybody or that I didn't serve and didn't do what I was supposed to do once people worked with me, but it just didn't feel right anymore. So I see a whole movement that has been slowly happening of decolonial anti-capitalist practices, and I'm here for it. And then I'm also seeing this realm on the point of why we're even here, spiritual bypassing, political bypassing, especially witnessing all the genocides. It's not the same. We are not the same, and we can't do business the same anymore. And so I'm seeing, honestly, I would like to see more bridges because I'm seeing more divides. And it's really hard for me as someone who goes along the realm of coaching as well as spiritual practices, and also because I do corporate work, edging on diversity, equity, inclusion, although I don't claim that as a consultant for companies, because I think that just means social justice work. And that's a palatable way to say social justice work. that I'm very disappointed in a lot of my peers who aren't saying anything. I'm not saying you have to be the loudest in the room, but to never acknowledge it once when you are outwardly creating content day in and day out is really, truly a disappointment and heartbreaking. And I want to stay open, but it's hard because to be the bridge is to do a lot of labor, right? And so I constantly find myself looking at the old and the new and what that bridge could be, and how do we stay open to that when there is a divide in the industries we're in.
Damn. I wrote down so much there and have so many thoughts. Dianna, I feel like you have anything you want to add to the dialogue?
Well, I feel like damn is probably like just says a lot about all of the things that everyone said. I think right now, you know, I'm being called to say that this actually gives me so much hope hearing this first few minutes. But even through all of the horror and the things that we have seen in the last year or the last 7 to 10 years, is the fall of capitalism. And it is really, you know, to be a death doula about it is, you know, seeing all of these people who actually are standing up and stewarding that death and creating with that in mind is hopeful. And so while it does feel really awful, there is a lot of hope because we are aligning with the astrology and the magic of it. I love that everyone keeps bringing up bridges. That's such a Saturn and Pisces, like Uranus and Taurus thing to talk about. You know, we're tearing them down and we're building them at the same time. And I think, you know, the millennial generation is really about that. And so it's, again, just an honor to like be in a space with people who actually are like doing what the universe is calling us forward to do, which is to destroy something in order to make room for something else, you know, to compost these old things and to take what we've learned from, you know, what have been predatory practices for sure. But they do have good things buried within them. And, you know, the coaching industry has always had this sort of make it your own vibe, you know, take what you actually like to do and make that the flavor. And I think that is such a disruption to capitalism rather than make everything the same. And so in the way that there were a lot of predatory components to that, and there still are, it has generated so many people who are just like so fucking authentically themselves. And they are healing that harm at the same, you know, they are doing the good work. And that is really hopeful as well. And I think it's also aligned with like where we're going in a revolution, and that there will be a lot of people who are already authentic to be leaders in that situation, because it's really hard to become authentic, especially in capitalism and patriarchy, but and you know, white supremacy especially. So we are doing that, and that is really hopeful. The shift, there's still a lot of value in it too. I like to say that to people who are like, oh, I just wasted all this time and money, you know, investing in my business and investing in this education. Like it's worthless now because it's kind of getting this bad rap because people are being silent and aren't really standing, you know. The same is true with witches and astrologers and, you know, all these other people who are supposed to be healers just being silent. But there are a lot of people who aren't. And I just like to remind us all of that we are the leaders now, and that's what's happening in this moment here with us together. But I think it's also good to remember that like what you learned has value, and the work and the pain that you've gone through has a lot of value for what's next. So build your bridges with that.
I love that. I want to kind of hold some space for And here's what I'm hearing from all of you. And also what's coming up for me is this collective grief. I can super relate to Nadia, for example, having been in the recipient of coaching, right? And a coach myself, doing all the things, doing what I was told to do, and it fucking worked. And to have it work and get to the end of where you were like, this is where I've been wanting to go. Like, I made it. Like, I'm paying myself. I'm paying someone else. I'm even paying someone, you know, their top rate for what they require or what they need, right? Like, I'm doing all these things, but I still feel so deeply extracted from. And I had to grieve the fish hooks of removing the fish hooks of capitalism from myself as a human with a body that is in the system, from my business, which I'm still doing, by the way. I'm still sorting that out. And I think that the bridge is what is really also calling me to name here as well with this grief. We're kind of like at the crossroads of a bridge and many more bridges that we're trying to build together, and wondering, well, where do we go from here? What happens next? And I think some of us, and at least, you know, in my community, I've heard a lot of, despair and suffering of like, I don't know where to go. I don't know anything else other than what it is to be a business under this oppressive, capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchal regime. Like, I don't know where to go from here. So I just wanted to name that and have that be a guide into our next question, which is, how can we disrupt? Or in this case, which maybe it's synonymous, but how do we destroy what a coach and entrepreneur is from what we've seen as the norm? The norm being hyper individualistic, predatory, capitalistic, and also like this layer of savior mentality, which I think speaks to the spiritual bypassing that we've seen, and same with the political bypassing. There is, I think, like, I feel, I can't remember who said this, but that feeling more that of the divisiveness in this community, or maybe lack thereof community. It's like, I feel like I'm trying to find my way to people. And I'm like, I'm reaching out. Can you see me? Like, I'm over here. This is like what I'm reimagining. But I know that I can't do it alone. So yeah, how can we disrupt or destroy what a coach and entrepreneur is from what we've seen as the norm?
I'll share. Oh, Aria, did you want to go? Good. Okay, cool. I think, you know, we don't always have to do everything from scratch. So, for example, as someone who works a lot with like ancestral wisdom and connecting with my ancestors, I think about like how a lot of our ancestors used to be, because, you know, back then going to a corporation to get a job wasn't as much of a thing. It wasn't as readily available. Like, for example, my grandfather, who transitioned before I was born, he created a school in Haiti, and honestly, all of my like grandparents and great grandparents, honoring their spirit right now, they all had businesses. Now, did they call themselves entrepreneurs? Not exactly, but they all either had like convenience stores, or like my grandfather, he created a school that is still there. And a lot of the times, it's people would just come and they would, you know, they didn't have it. So they would go there, he would provide food, he had resources, so he would share. And then the people that maybe didn't have the currency, the fiat, they would then like help out around, they would help cleaning or cooking. And it was like this beautiful, like reciprocal exchange of like, okay, you have something that like I might not have, and then I have something that's a gift to you. So we can exchange these gifts and we can use that to then build something even greater. And that's a testament, because it wasn't all about the fiat, but yet the currency of communal care and of love and of like actual like what is my medicine and what is yours was so prevalent. And the testament is that the school is still alive and thriving and supporting so many children, even almost 35 years after his death. And so I think it's an opportunity for us to really tap in and remember that capitalism wasn't always a construct. There was business was being done before then, and people were very in tune to the natural cycles. Like in the afternoon, people would take hours and hours of rest and just eat in community for hours, and things were still getting done. People were still getting taken care of, and opportunity was still there. And even with my grandmother's convenience store, it wasn't like they were rich, but every time they always had enough to take care of themselves. And when people didn't have the money to buy the thing, they would give them something of value. They'd give my grandma something of value until they were able to come back and pay for the thing, and then they would get their thing back. So it's like there's so many different ways that we can really like align with like, okay, there are other ways outside of this, and we can really tap into this indigenous wisdom that is most of us, everyone comes from an indigenous land. We just have to do that work to like reconnect and tap in and to learn. And even when you don't know like your literal ancestry, the wisdom within this body, within this vessel, has so much wisdom to share with us if we're able to like actually just take the time in a space where we're not fully just like on go, because that's when you really get a lot of the downloads of like, okay, or the uploads of like, oh, this is a way forward for how I'm meant to move, by connecting internally and by letting that intuitive wisdom really speak and show me the path forward. So it's a different way of moving and of being that's not so focused on like go, action, but the rest is really at the creative potential that we get to tap into as well.
Aria, did you want to jump in and share?
Sure. I think conversations like this are a great place to start. I think that this is the first conversation that I've been in where I've heard there's been space to unpack and have the accountability, the self-accountability, and like allowing ourselves to lean in and unlearn the ways that we perpetuated harm and to really expand on that. I think a lot of us want to be disruptors, but we're not ready to disrupt our own norms and our own shadows and our own like protective barriers that we put on ourselves. Somebody mentioned like self-extraction, like that's definitely a space that I was in where even if I felt like I was being like very like community oriented, it was at the cost of myself a lot. And for me, when I started making a lot of money, that was like my entire identity, coming from poverty and coming from the girl that wasn't allowed to sit at the tables and, you know, ate lunch by herself in the bathroom and stuff like that. That was like proof to my inner child and proof to all my wounds that like I had made it and I'm welcome here and I mean something and I'm valuable in this world. And so that was the constant fucking push every day, was how to like maintain that high that I had never felt in my entire life at all costs to myself, you know? And so I think that it's really important to start with that, like shadow work, the healing, unlearning, really taking time to like lean into the shit and the shame and the muck that's coming up from this, because we can't take any of that shit with us into that next space. So like really giving ourselves time to honor, mourn, grieve, sift through all of the shit that's popping up for us. And then we can start at a space where we can be like, okay, what's my North Star? What's my mission? What is like my truth? What does success look like for me? And that way we can hold a mirror up to things when stuff, you know, when there is all of this outside noise about what success looks like, or all of these different things going on in the world, that we can be like, okay, does this, what I'm doing, is this action that I'm taking, is this room that I'm about to walk into, is this opportunity that I'm about to take, does this align, does this feel right for where I am at right now, and without extracting from myself.
The self-extraction is so real. That is definitely my shadow work for sure. And I want folks to add who haven't commented yet, but something that came up listening to both of you was that we almost forgot what value truly is for us. Like, because capitalism can really seep into our psyche and tell us, well, this is valuable and this is not valuable, because it's so rooted in our survival, right? Under capitalism, and it can get so muddy. It can get really, really like enmeshed. That's the word I was looking for. And yeah, it just reminds me of sifting through the muck. I don't know if anyone else wants to add before we move on to the next question.
I can go. You know, to disrupt, I think what everybody is saying, just it starts with us. So for me personally, disrupting was really, again, stripping out anything that felt harmful or extractive or exploitive, and just sneaky in some way, or icky things that would make me literally say, if someone approached me that way, that would give me the ick. Absolutely, 1000%. So why replicate that? Why do that? And then also just unlearning this idea that success was to scale, period. Right? And so that took a lot to let go of, and to scale back, and to scale down, and to be with myself, and to be with the grief of moving through all of that, because it was really hard, especially when it came to letting go of team members that I loved, because they did, like kind of what Dianna was saying, like they did support me, they did help the brand, they did believe in the mission, they did pour an equal energy exchange as much as possible. And part of that disruption was having a heart-centered layoff process, right? We see layoffs happening all the time in so many industries. So being able to hold that and co-create a plan and hold each other and tell my team with tears, I'm really trying not to project my shit onto you, but I can't stop having an embodied reaction. So how do we hold that? You know, and tell me what your boundaries are in this process, and tell me what you need, and tell me how I can support you, even beyond this container of this team and this work. And that was so hard, because it really activated so many stories about myself, about failure, and what it means to be a quote unquote good entrepreneur and good business owner, not knowing that seasons happen and cycles of life happen even in your own business, right? And realizing you get to evolve, you get to change your mind, you get to hold all the impact that you have, regardless of how it lands. It's not your truth to hold how someone else receives it. And then part of that disruption is a year later, really continuing on my path towards why I started this in the first place. Like really, again, reconnecting after stripping so much to my why, which was, I just want to be free, right? I just want to go with my flow. I just want to work with my energy level. I just want to be able to be with myself and know myself more, and to rest when I want to. Just like today, I was telling everyone, I've been really in my feelings around the capitalism of it all. So I had no calls today other than this, and it's my end of day here basically at 5 p.m. And just like, I'm just gonna have a me day and just chill and relax. And it's okay to not overproduce. It's okay to not over hustle anymore. But honestly, that required me to make a radical decision to move out of one of the highest price places that I call home my whole entire life, the Bay Area, right? And that was a decision that I didn't take lightly, right? And that was a decision for me to still preserve who I am and breathe, which means I do have a lot of privilege, right? And having to grapple that with what Stella said in your land acknowledgement, that I'm trying to also do this ethically too, right? So in that, it's not just about the decisions we make in our businesses, it's the decisions we make in our whole entire ecosystem. And how we show up in one place, I always say this, is how we show up in another. So if you are able to show up in a disruptive or destruction mode of the things that do not serve in one place of your life, I really do believe we can slowly make that happen in every aspect of our life. And for me to get real with that was for me to know what was enough and to really hold true for that. Stella knows this all the time when we voice memo each other all the time, where I'm just saying, I'm feeling a little scarce. Things are a little slow in different seasons, but I just told you a week ago that I made enough. I have enough. But there's this little tiny inner hater voice inside that keeps saying, but do more, Nadia. You need more. What if you run out? What if this, that? And we have to really learn. You know, I think after all these years, I finally learned to just say, okay, I'm going to feel that. I'm going to be with that. And I'm going to trust what I said earlier, which is I have enough in this moment. And that's okay. I am safe in this moment. And that really takes a lot of self-security and self-regulating and self-knowing and trusting. And to trust, like, hey, I know how to make the money that I need to be well, right? And I will do it on my own time, on my own pace.
I'm soaking that up, soaking all of this up. Dianna, did you want to add anything to that as well?
I mean, I'm going to be thinking about all of this.
Same.
For days. I can't wait to watch the replays. I can be like, what was it's going so fast. And like, there's so many juicy nuggets. I guess for me, in my own practice of, the first thing you have to do is disrupt yourself, right? You have to disrupt yourself. And that's the hardest part of this process, is like letting go of these things that you have built up to keep you safe. Like Aria was saying, a lot of this is rooted in our own life experience and our traumas. And we want to help people because we want to help them avoid those things, or, we want to try to make it easier. We're so humans, we want to be there for each other. It is part of why we're here, to be together and to have community. And, the thing that I try to remember when I'm having one of those down days or when I'm really struggling is that that's fucking intentional, to rechannel the rage back up again, to be like, oh yeah, it's not like the universe hates me, or I'm having, this isn't working for me, or my ideas are dumb, or whatever, these like things we say to ourselves, but to remind myself that it's intentional, that, white supremacy tells us we have to be perfect. And, capitalism tells us we have to be productive, and the growth model is the only model. And we are so disconnected from our roots, our individual cultures, but also from nature, which is why I love, the whole, it's an ecosystem. An ecosystem is an economy, right? Like an economy is just an ecosystem. So, I try to remind myself of that too. And when people ask me, I don't know what else there could possibly be other than capitalism. That's the biggest hurdle a lot of people have. And I try, I don't laugh at them, but inside I'm laughing like, oh my gosh, like that's so intentional. Like that is propaganda at its finest, that we think that, because like Love said, capitalism is only 500 years old. We've been here for a long time. Nature has been here for a long time. the history of capitalism is a joke in comparison, timeline to that. It is not more powerful than us, and it is not better. And so just reminding, like Nadia said, that, you know, be part of the ecosystem, be part of the cycles. Let there be deaths in what you're doing. Let those things go. But don't let them go like into the spiritual industrial complex. Like, oh, I'm just going to let that shit go. Like, compost it, you know, figure out what the value is in it. Churn it, burn it, you know, do a ritual around it, whatever you need to do. Nothing is wasted. There's no such thing here on earth as waste, right? It's like we always have the opportunity. And sometimes that also requires us to go to others and say, like, help, which, you know, we're not really good at. And again, that's intentional. So just moving through that process of, you know, none of us made this up. We're all here. You know, we're all imperfect, and that's what makes us unique. And we need each other in order to, you know, move through that, because that is the most disruptive thing. When we start going, wait a minute, this is fucking bullshit. Like, this is intentional. Like, you did that. They did this to us, all of us together. So we can say no, and we can take a day off. But we can also, like, if we need help too, it's not just Nadia's responsibility to try to generate that income for herself. You know, having a space where she can say, fuck, I am not going to make it right now. I need help. Like, can somebody help me? And have someone be like, oh yeah, you know, I totally can help you. And there isn't that like guilt or shame around it, or there isn't that pain that comes with being in that space of like, oops, you know, I need help today. You know, I need to get through this period. And I think that that's what we need to get back to also, is like admitting we need help. And that's very disruptive as well, without shame and without feeling like we even need to come back and pay someone again, you know, that we just get what we need. And next time it'll be our turn to give something to someone else. And there's nothing that feels as good as doing that, in my experience. So I feel like we need to like hype that up a little bit more. I've been like, that is actually the high you're looking for by making all the money and having the money is actually when you give the money or give a thing to someone else and there's no strings attached to it. And you're just like, ooh, it's good stuff. Yeah. So I would just add that, I guess. And also just, thank you all for everything that you're sharing. It's so delicious.
Can I just add one thing about disruption?
Yes,
before we move
absolutely.
on? I want to say that if you want to disrupt, like the biggest thing that we can do right now is like, this is going to take patience and resilience and grit from us, because it isn't by accident. It is intentional, like Dianna said. And we are on the cusp of change. We are on a cusp of us leading this radical revolution and building this new space for us. And they're going to pull out every fucking stop. It's going to get worse. It's going to get tiresome. And everyone that I know that's on this call, that's commenting, that's been in this space, like we have felt like, what's the point? Stella and I have talked about that. Like, what's the fucking point of continuing to do this? Why continue to show up? Why continue to take up space? Why continue to have this business at all? Like, I'm out here like applying for jobs because I'm like, fuck this, you know, like whatever. But like, we have to hold on. If we're feeling those feelings, that is a sign that it is our magic that is going to lead us into this new space, and a sign that we are going to succeed on the other side of this, and that we are going to be the ones that help usher in these changes. And so I really invite everybody that like, it is okay to feel like, what the fuck, but also recognize, okay, it is stacked against us. Recognize that it is about to get harder because they're about to get louder and pull out all of their little things that have worked in the past. That's not a sign to give up. It's not a sign that you weren't built for this. It's not a sign to stop. It just means that we need to band together even more. Disruption is ugly. It's hard. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. And we just have to lean into that and continue to keep on keeping on through this next era.
We're all snapping our fingers because that is so real. I'm actually a little verklempt hearing everyone's answers and just how this conversation is going, because that is one thing that I've been rooting in so much to give me that hope. Because like Aria said, and I've spoken to each and every one of you individually, but I feel like Aria and Nadia, you know me on such a deep level, where I consistently, it is so hard. It is a battle for me to show up and continue, because I am feeling the pushback. The pushback is getting harder, but I'm very stubborn. So and I don't know, maybe it's my ancestors pushing me, but I just can't give up and give in. And this type of conversation is what keeps me going. And I think the fact that we are all unified in what needs to happen, which is showing up together, that this is a shared responsibility. Another thing that I want to add to that came up for me listening to you all is, I know a lot of people that are descaling their businesses right now, or descaled last year, because, and I agree with you, Dianna, the fall of capitalism is here. Everyone is waking up and seeing that the propaganda of scaling is the way, and people scale and they realize, actually, I feel like a shell of a human, and my business feels like a shell of a business. I don't even know how I got here, because that's what capitalism does. It really, it 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 is that muck. It is that that shadow work within us. And I also really, really love what you named that. Well, actually, before I go there, something that came up for me was, what are we responsible for? Because I think sometimes we as entrepreneurs, as service providers, consultants, and also as humans living under capitalism and oppression, like, we get really confused about what is our responsibility, and what is not ours to hold. And this is like just a question that comes up for me, and I don't know if I'm phrasing it in the right way, but I'm curious if anyone has anything to add or say about that before I get to our final question for y'all, and then we can move on to our community questions. Yeah. Maybe I'll give an example. So I have been told by so many, like, previous coaches, this idea, and I'm actually going to be having a conversation about this with Sam of the Financial Witch. She is all about anti-capitalism in astrology. And the thing that we were talking about was this idea of prosperity gospel. It's like, it is your duty. It is how we break free from the shackles of capitalism, is by getting super rich and then sharing all this money, because you are a good person. You are a good person that will do good things with the wealth that you will accrue. And to some extent, I do believe that can be a possible route. But I think a lot of people get really tripped up around the martyrship, perhaps, maybe, or the shame of having, I don't know, I'm still working this out myself, maybe like survivor's guilt, perhaps, where capitalism also operates that way. It wants you to stay down on the ground, because that is how it further extracts from you. So that's like one example that I'm thinking about, because I think that also gets enmeshed too, and can get a little bit mucky of how do we discern that? Yeah.
I'm always waiting. Like, does somebody else want to talk about that? I feel like this
that one's a big one.
It's just a little question. It's just like a 100-page essay that we're all going to write about it. But I love this question because it's such a it's you know, the root of magic, elemental magic, especially, I think, because, you know, there is no exchange. You know, you're responsible for everything. We're responsible for everything and nothing at the same time. So it is like a deep philosophical conversation, you know. And because we've been so separated from nature, we struggle with it because we're like, oh, everything has a price, and you know, nature is competition. Like, this is stuff we learned in middle school science class. And you know, my favorite quote about this is, you know, Octavia E. Butler's quote about, you know, all that you touch, you change, and all that you changes you. And so you have this great power, and by being alive and being able to change things and have influence on things and to hurt things and to take things, and you need things, you know, you need to consume food and water in order to live, and so you have to have an exchange for those things. So it's tricky because we don't feel connected to that. We don't feel connected to nature. Again, that's totally intentional also. So, you know, that's what I think that the answer to that question is. It doesn't help us to like figure out how to live with it, though. I guess it's like there's so much unlearning and relearning. But I think that quote, you know, just thinking about all the things that you are touching and all the things that you have an influence on, and how those things have an influence on you, is a good place to start sort of unlearning those things. And then I always just, you know, tell people, and this was kind of my journey too, of like, go back to that middle school science class, go back to that middle school, you know, class about money, or I guess high school too. We have like the econ class you had to take in high school or whatever, you know, personal finance or whatever it was. And they started saying there's no such thing as a free lunch. And, you know, you have to think about all of these narratives that seem so like they're just there, but they're actually the threads that are woven into our brains that keep us from being able to imagine anything else. But also to not feel crushed, like you said, pushed down to the ground by the weight of saying, I am responsible for everything. Everything, 2 words, right? Like I am responsible for everything. It is my job to make sure that everything is going along, right? And that includes death and pain and grief and all of these things that, you know, capitalism loves to make us think that we can avoid doing. Or white supremacy, I guess, especially likes to make us think we can avoid doing by just being nice. So I love this question. I feel like we could meet weekly and just like dig into this. I would love that. If anybody wants to set that group chat up, I'm down. I'll set it up if you want to join. But that's what I would say is like, you know, think about what you learned about how nature works, and think about what you learned about what is an exchange. And, you know, the do no harm component of popular magic too, right? Like, what does that even mean? It's tricky, but that's not really an answer. That's more of like just.
That's totally an answer. And we're totally forming.
Yeah.
We're forming a group from this. And
Yes.
I think exploring these feelings and thoughts is a part of the work, right? That's the shadow work. I want to ask my final question, if we can move on to that, which if y'all already feel like you shared something that answered that, great. Awesome. We'll amplify that. So here's the last question is, what is one piece of advice a business, a coach, consultant, entrepreneur can do now to decolonize their business, make it more of a anti-capitalist one, or re-indigenize? Yeah. If anyone has any ideas.
I don't want to keep being the first one to like be like, okay, I'll go.
Well, everyone's going to go this round for sure.
I think the biggest thing is to start focusing on building community and getting away from building an audience. An audience is performative. It's a performance. A community is action. An audience, you're talking to or at people, and a community is you're talking with. You're having a conversation, right? It's all about that like reciprocity. I think that building an audience is very rooted in the aesthetics and the making you the focal point, and community is built in true reciprocity. And like Dianna said, like really being able to give and take in a very like building that ecosystem. So focus on community. Community is going to be what gets us fucking through this. And we need it now more than ever. I have been talking this shit for 20 years, but maybe y'all will listen to me now. Community, please.
I love that. Community over an audience. That's where reciprocity can be met. Anyone else want to go next? It's our final question.
I can go next. Break the chain of how we're doing our order of things. But Aria, I love that. That just is so beautiful, and just audience is performative. The way you framed it really, really hits and resonates for me. And so one thing that came to mind is sustainability. How can you center or create a sustainable business, meaning you are sustained? Right? Meaning you have enough, maybe even a little bit of overflow, which is the goal, so that you can contribute or pour into communities, causes, other people that you might be caretaking for, so that there's enough to share. But sustainability also based on your energy levels, sustainability based on what you need to do day in and day out to actually get the work done and operate and make it happen. So that means not depleting yourself. That means getting really clear on your expectations and boundaries with your business and your work and your relationships that help cultivate that. And if we can focus on sustainability, I think it can be so much more regenerative and maybe even more joyful, maybe even more flow than we can ever imagine. Because I like to have fun while I do the work. And I think it's fun when things are actually sustainable versus, like everybody was saying, the message, depleting, extractive, exploitive, even towards self. So that does require you to do that inner work too, so that you know when you are putting impossible expectations on yourself or pressure on yourself or self-inducing anything. And yeah, so sustainability was the first thing that came to mind.
I love that. And I feel like speaking to the theme, when we be responsible for everything, doesn't that, like the community care aspect, the burden of doing this work is no longer burdensome because we're not doing it alone. Yeah. All right. Love, want to go next?
Yeah, for sure. I think, like everyone said, I feel like it happens on multiple levels. So I would say on an individual inner work level, on a community level, and then on a like nature-based natural world level. And I think it starts internally with like, okay, all these parts of ourselves that we've been compartmentalizing, that we've been like hiding away or locking away, those mucky, fear-driven parts of ourselves that we're like, oh, like shoving in the back, those are all fertilizer, and those are all opportunities for us to like connect and then use that as we're talking about magic and stuff as alchemy, and really those are the most important parts of ourselves that we get to use to show up and to really honor our magic and our essence. And that is imbuing that in our business is really what gives so much soul, and that's really what nurtures the business, so that it's not just like a shell, but it has like a sacred spirit, and that comes from that work that we do within. So on that level, starting with that, and even just like, yo, this fear and these things that like I've been feeling in my heart for so long, those whispers that I'm like, oh, I don't have the resources, or oh, me could never be me. It's like, no, that's exactly what you need to tap into. That's exactly what the world needs. And so we take that and then we merge that with like, okay, now I'm working through that. Let me find the homies that are doing that too, so that we can kind of like work on that together and talk together. And like, when I'm feeling low and down, I can lean on you, Nadia, or I can lean on you, Stella, and we can like, you know, do that for each other. And then we are stronger. And then we go to our community and it's like, okay, like, you have this, I have this, we can all like really build together. And it's not about knowing it all. It's really about like, we can put this puzzle together with each of our uniquenesses. And then when we have that, then we go to nature and we look and we're like, okay, let's learn more. Like, this is nature has been doing this forever. This is not new. So we can just sit there and at the feet of nature, learning like, okay, this is how the bees and the flowers and the trees and the rain and everything is like working together. Okay, now how do we contribute to that with all our gifts in community with what we've learned from nature? And then that creates a ripple effect in the universe. And it's like, we're giving back, like it becomes naturally a reciprocal thing on each level. And then that naturally the universe will respond to us with the resources. And it's not about, it doesn't become about like, oh, like I need to make all this millions. It's like, no, you're naturally going to be provided for because you are providing for the earth and yourself and others. And it becomes like a very like healthy, holistic ecosystem just by using those things that we were so afraid of within ourselves, just by like honoring why we came here in the first place and being so deeply devoted to that and being disciplined with that devotion, and then resting. Like, we did all of this, we worked, we came in community, we had the hard conversations, like, let's chill. Like, it doesn't, we have to play, we gotta rest, we gotta have fun, we gotta live life. It's not about doing. And for me, that's what business is about. That's what it means to create a holistic business ecosystem.
Finger snaps all around.
I want that so bad. Let's do it.
Same. All right. Dianna, anything else that you want to add before we wrap up?
I mean, just cheers. Cheers and woos. I guess the only thing I would say, and this is just what I've been saying to myself, especially after these last couple weeks, is like, that joy is the polarity of grief, that they go together, and that's a good thing. That grief reminds, grief shows us how much we love something, and it shows us where we should appreciate the moments of joy, and that we should seek out moments of joy. And just trying to remind myself that like any work I do, I want to be paid in joy. And sometimes that's money, for sure. Sometimes it's money and sometimes it's something else. But that it needs to be rooted in this like joyfulness, because then I remember what I'm fighting for. I remember where that rage, that comes back around again is going, and that we are moving between those two things. We don't want to bypass the grief and stay in the joy all the time, but we want to make sure that we don't get stuck in the grief, especially right now. And that can be really hard when you're running a business that's heart-centered or that you really love like a child. We love our businesses a lot. We love them like because they're a part of us. And we really, really tend to be the kind of people, especially probably everyone here, that do really want to do good things in the world with our work. And that's not true about everyone in this industry. And so it can get really exhausting. So remembering to move between those two things. And then just, I love what Love said about, like, have fun. Like, don't fucking forget to have fun and be playful and childlike and, build community, but don't let it just be community that's about your work, where you're talking about your work. Go join a club, go play a game, go, do something just ridiculous and weird, and get dressed up, get dressed down, whatever it is that you feel like doing, get naked. I don't know. But don't forget to when you're making your schedule and you're making your budget and you're doing all these things that we have to do in capitalism, that you make a line item for that stuff, because otherwise it's too easy to forget. Again, especially right now and in the last year, why we're here, like what we're fighting, what are we resisting, and what are we trying to build, is more space for everyone to be able to do that. And I can't wait to see the world that is made, the bridge, when we walk over that bridge to the new world and it's all these weird people naked, dressed up, goofing off, like, what are they going to do with all that free time? It's going to be so wild, and I can't wait to see it. So I try to remember that while I'm, giving myself advice about what can I do to get through this fuckery that we're witnessing. So yeah. Yeah.
That really hits. Yeah. Make a line item for joy.
Yes.
That's what.
And grief. I mean, don't forget.
And grief.
Yeah. They're like, the accountant in me is like, it's a T-sheet and you have both sides of the equation, the debit and the credit is grief and joy. And you need to feel both of those things. And you need to make time in your day and in your budget for how that's going to come up for you and how you're going to move through that, and share that with your friends and your community. Check.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all of your wisdom. I want to open it up to, we have one question, and then we'll end by sharing, our lasting messages for our community, maybe some magic and medicine we want to share, and then we can close this container together. So let's open it up to the question that I got from Messy Liberation. How do we collectively come into emotional and cultural agreement about what community is when lived experience may dictate different definitions? And how do you handle differences in values within community? I'll let whoever wants to answer that question come on board. And then if anyone wants to add, feel free.
Me again. I think the first thing, again, it's a collective conversation. So it's being able to come to the table with like what you are desiring from community, what you're hoping to receive, what you're hoping to bring into it. Really navigating which communities make you feel really safe and welcome. I think that when we are in community with each other, I don't think that there are a lot of differences in values. I think that that's part of what brings us together in a community, is this shared value, the shared concept, the shared idea. For me, making space and community for more marginalized communities, underrepresented, under people that have been heard less from, the Brown, Black, Indigenous populations, queer folk. It's really, as a leader or people that are building the tables or opening the rooms, it's listening to the most vulnerable voices, the most underserved populations, and really seeing how do we build safe space for them? How do we feel safe in community? How do we provide that space that they're desiring, that they're not finding in other rooms? And being open to hearing how you can be better and show up bigger, bolder for your people. I think that's like a great place to start, and to know that we don't all have the answers. We're all learning and unlearning. So really being able to have that community collective conversation and not create spaces where you have a hierarchy because you believe that you know everything and that, you know, everybody else is just coming into your space to learn from you. But really to have that talking with people, not talking at, and to create less performative spaces.
And to add to what Aria said as well, I think when it comes to community, really being and with people who have different just ways about going about things, because we all have our uniqueness, and really being curious and letting curiosity lead over judgment, I think is always like a better way, because it allows for more of an openness and an openness in dialogue. Because for me, it's like I have friends from very different religious traditions and backgrounds than me, and I'm very rooted in something completely different, and we're still so beautifully close, and it's because there's a mutual respect, there's a mutual love. Like love trumps all. Even if you are like, oh, I might not really resonate with the way they go about that thing, but I honor and respect that that's where they're at in their lives, and that's what works and they like the most. And I have to like honor people's autonomy, just like I want that for myself. And when you have that and then the other person has that, you're able to really just continue to move forward and like be like, oh, that's cool, I can learn something from you, and not have to necessarily be the same way. And that's the beauty and the magic. I mean, we're all very different on this panel. I'm sure we all have like our own specific ways about our spirituality, and yet look how we've been brought together. Like that's beautiful. That's magic. I mean, the world would be very boring if it was 5 loves in the same type of way. Like, I mean, not that can happen, but all that to say, I think that that's important too, is like our differences, but in how that our differences unify us.
I think also we all need to learn how to take up space and to speak up more boldly into our community, and to ask for the things that we need, to speak up when we're not feeling comfortable, when we're seeing somebody that's talked to in a way that maybe, you know, doesn't align with the value. Like, yes, we are all from different areas. We all have different backgrounds, different lived experiences, but I think like that value is the connection, right? The values, the morals, the missions, that is that connection. And I think it's really important for all of us to speak up, especially if you're a leader. If you're going to call yourself a community leader, like you have to be somebody that speaks the fuck up for the people. You have to be willing to make choices for your community to make it safe, that are really uncomfortable. They hurt the bottom line. I've been in that position many times where it's cost me many things, but you need to be willing to like be rooted in integrity and show the fuck up for your people in action.
Thank you both, Aria and Love. Nadia and Dianna, do you want to share anything to that, or do you feel pretty good about that answer?
I feel great about those answers, but as a white person, I would say to any other white folks in here, you know, a lot of our work in community is to be uncomfortable, for one, to not always be seeking our comfort. So it is a different perspective, or something that I feel like we need to work on. A lot of us need to work on. And also just not speaking up the whole time that you're in community. Not always being the loudest person in the room. And also knowing when to leave a room or not be in a community when it's just not the right place for you to be. and knowing how to know that, right? Knowing how to understand that, and not how to leave a situation that isn't for you. And I think it's important for people to also have a lot of different groups, right? A lot of different places. That's why it's also just fun to join a club or, do some fun things, because it doesn't always have to be so intensely about our agreements, but it can also just be fun. And to have a balance of those things. And I think it's challenging to find that sometimes when you're running a business, because it does end up being like, 90 hours a week are you working, or you're always thinking about your business because you care so much about it, and you're always, trying to be on about that. So just trying to make sure that you have those variables of a good time, as well, is really me talking to myself as an Aquarius Capricorn who doesn't love to group or join. That's something, but I want it, but I don't, I struggle with it. So that's my advice to myself, really. I'm gonna watch that back in the recording and be like, yes, talking to me. So that would be just the two things that I would add to every beautiful other thing that was said about that. Check.
Thank you, Dianna. Nadia, did you want to share anything?
I can't think of much more to add to goodness. I mean, other than after all you do, after all you stay curious about, after all you invite people in to have conversations, to name the things, to say what you need, to invite in a redesign in your alignment, how you can be aligned or accept that you're not aligned, right? Also know when people might not be the community that you want to be with, and that's okay too, right? Sometimes I think about values alignment as not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just we are simply not aligned. Many relationships were not aligned, even with family, even with our blood. Not aligned with a job doesn't mean the job is bad inherently, just not aligned with the company values or this manager's values or this client of ours values. And that doesn't necessarily need to be good or bad. For me, it just means it's not really where I'm going to stay and invest my time, energy, maybe even my dollars into. I have choice, and I'm going to choose how much I want to show up to build the bridge, right? And continue or not, depending on how things go through when we do that initial work to get alignment.
I love that. It's almost like believing that alignment can be possible, right? And to get curious about that. And when you reach that crossroads of maybe we're just misaligned and not compatible, and it's okay. We can go our separate ways, and then we reach the build it and they will come type of values when we're building community. Okay, so we are wrapping up now. I want everyone in our panel to go around and share, what do you want to amplify today? What is your magic and medicine that you want to share? And where can folks stay connected with you? Because I think that one, this is how we build community. This is how we be in community with one another. And two, I think that in the chaos and messiness of the coaching industry, there's a lot of bad apples in there. And I would like to say that we are beautiful flowers, just, I don't know, ready to bloom and be a part of your community garden. So who wants to kick it off? Who wants to share their magic and medicine? What are you amplifying?
I would like to invite you to kick it off, actually, because I have a feeling you would skip right over that part.
I was going to save myself for last because I'm facilitator, but I guess I could go first.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, what am I amplifying? Well, here's what I want to amplify first and foremost. I am doing a mutual aid fundraiser campaign where I'm supporting a displaced Gazan mother. Her name is Dr. Mona, along with her elderly mother and 6 children. So I want to really amplify that because there are ways that you can also share your wealth if you have the means, or the wealth of your community. If like the financial means aren't there, you can always amplify. I will be sure to share the GoFundMe. You can also Venmo me at Stella Gold XO. And the magic and medicine I want to share is I'm also taking 10% of each offering that I have and having that be redistributed to supporting Dr. Mona with her basic needs. And so right now there are 2 ways to work with me. One is through my wealth intensives, which are open to entrepreneurs, non-entrepreneurs that are really just looking to get some support on their financial literacy, like where are they now and where do they want to go. That is a supportive container for folks that haven't worked with a wealth coach before. And then for folks that really want to go deep and just dive deeper into building a business financial foundation, that's where you can work one-on-one with me in my 6-month container. It is called Wealth Expansion for Entrepreneurs. It's a 6-month container. You get a wealth roadmap. You meet with me bi-monthly, and we together collaboratively build a financial ecosystem, a business ecosystem that is in solidarity with yourself, so you can feel and be resourced, and with community as well at the center. So yeah, I'll be sure to share that. Anyone else? Now taking the spotlight off myself. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. Oh, okay, I'll go. So I have 3 spots open right now for my one-on-one leadership coaching, and it can go anywhere from your leadership growth, development, confidence, negotiation, and self-advocacy. It is for Black, Indigenous, women, and femmes of color. And I do 3-month or 6-month containers where we meet bi-weekly and also have in-between support available. And it really is about you becoming your most real and authentic self in all the spaces that you occupy as you show up and create your dreams or go after whatever it is that you want most in this world and the impact that you want to make as a leader, because we are all leaders, regardless of if you're a 9-to-5er, a business owner, an artist, a creative, or even on a break for yourself and from the work and hustle. To heal and go inward, I also often have group programs available. So there's a wait list for one of my programs called Activate Your Voice, which is a 10-week program to really activate your voice and take up space. And we will be having a wait list, if I can say, Stella. Stella and I have been reimagining and dreaming up something, the quote unquote, not final probably, but a frontier of coaching I've always wanted to do, which is retreats. So having a wait list for May 2025 for a retreat to reimagine, rebirth, and really create something for QT BIPOC femmes in May 2025 in Oaxaca.
I can't believe I completely just
okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
I was waiting. It was good. I got us.
Yes, come through. We'll send the details there in the email. I'm going to start commenting all of your info as well in the comments so people know where to find you. So, all right, who's next?
Okay. You can find me at Show the Fuck Up Media or showthefuckup.media. And we're all about creating community, creating visibility. I think a great place to start would probably be the club. I actually just added a free version of it. So you can join in showthefuckup.media/community. And you can join in at the club at a free level to access networking, community conversations, just like this one, being able to pop in and ask the really juicy, spicy questions to really rad disruptors and creative visionaries. There's also an up-leveled VIP option that is a membership that's around helping you show the fuck up even more. So visibility, strategy, and coaching, helping you take this really amazing magic and disruption that you have and putting it on more stages, on more podcasts, getting you all of the different gigs, putting you in the right rooms, and building you community in that way. So I think that would probably be the best way to tap in. Join community. That's what we need. And there's a free version. So go to it.
All right, Love or Dianna, it's just you two.
I was gonna say Dianna always goes last, so I was trying to give you to go, but I'll go. Yes, so y'all can find me. I'm very active on Substack. Cultural Preservation Network.substack.com. I have like a two-sided thing. So like on the first side, it's completely free and open, and that's where I go into what I'm calling our legacy cultivation framework, and that's broken into financial wellness, creative development, cultural exploration, and then holistic business. So we basically cover all of those topics once a month on Substack, free, and I go very in depth. I have guides, I have all types of beautiful things in there. And then for people who are really wanting to take the next stage of building their holistic business from the ground up and covering the range of what it takes from spiritual to tangible to strategy and everything in between, I shared the BTS of me building my first business, which is my production company, as well as CPN. So you get to see like in the moment building that, as well as all the things I'm learning along the way, and just sharing what I have learned. And we're starting to also bring more people into it who have holistic businesses that they're really intentionally and strategically building from a heart-centered place. So all the things there, that is the paid version of our Substack called the Well Resource Creative Membership. So you can find that all on Substack. So that's where you can find me.
Okay. I'm going last. I like going last because then I can listen to everyone else talk. It makes me relaxed. So yeah, my business has been going through it the last year, shedding a lot of things, adding things, and changing things. And I finally feel like I've come out the other side in this last week of adventures and line dancing and crying endlessly with strangers and all the things. So, you can go to my website and read the novel that is my website about all the things that I offer and do and think. It's a lot. I offer astrology readings, obviously, that are free and on a sliding scale in a model that I really, really have loved. I have traded so many amazing things. I have received art and gifts and things that have made my life worth fucking living with this new thing. I can't even express. So definitely check that out. I do warn you though, getting a reading from me will probably fuck up your life in all the best ways. All that Capricorn does say the things. So authentic self journey. Great start there. Love astrology for that. And then that's interwoven with the witchcraft and magic and spells and all the things if you're looking for that. And then I'm offering my death magic services online finally. And that does not mean your death, unless it does. It can, but it doesn't have to. It can be the death of anything, but it can also just be exploring grief and moving through death in a new way. Because the death of capitalism is going to be a very big death for all of us. But the main thing I would like to share is that I am working on a zine magazine. I'm not sure what I want to call it. And it's also a workbook, which I've been designing over the last couple of years. And it's going to be quarterly. And I would really like to find more collaborators and contributors and artists and just whatever people who want to write, draw, create a worksheet, something that would come out every quarter. And that's on the seasonal quarter. So what we know is spring, winter, fall, summer, but is aligned astrologically. So it starts in the new year, which is Capricorn season. So December. So the deadlines would be coming up in the next couple of weeks for that one. So if that sounds interesting or you're like, what the fuck, reach out and we can talk more about your ideas or what that sparked in you. I love that. But yeah, I think that's it. Or if you want to make art, like if people just want to like collaborate on our creative things, please, in our free time, as a club, as for fun, for funsies. And then I'm going to start the what are we responsible for weekly chat group. No, I'm just kidding. I feel like I just want to.
I was like, so when are we
doing that, y'all? Where are we doing that? Because that sounds like the food and the medicine that I need right now. So definitely let me know if anybody wants to do that, because I'm down. But yeah, check.
All right,
I love
y'all.
the website.
This was great. Thank you so much for showing up in how you can do business not as fucking usual. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your magic, your medicine, your offerings, your contribution to co-creating a new space, and also a little bit spicy, which I'm here for, contributing to destroying what needs to be destroyed, continuing to dismantle and disrupt what needs to be dismantled and disrupted, and naming the collective responsibility there. Yeah. Oof. All right. We went a little bit over. So how do we want to ground and close this container? Oh, I know Aria had to go. She had a meeting. I want to ground. Let's ground this container by just rubbing our palms again. And taking some deep breaths. Collectively, together, just imagine yourself in a room with community. Collectively breathing together and holding that medicine in your hands, creating that heat, that love, that freedom and liberation that we are calling in and naming, and knowing what we're releasing and letting go of, and putting that where you want to put it. Ooh, I kind of like this. It feels a little tingly. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.